What's going on, everybody? It's Rich Perez welcoming you back into another weekly dose of your rundown. Joining me, as always, my brother from another, my co-host, all the way from the O, Kayson Davis. How you doing, Kay?
I'm doing great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. It's another weekend. A lot of crazy things going on. I know you got to be feeling great. The alma mater made the Final Four for first time in program history. We got a lot to discuss, my man.
It's a bittersweet thing. Obviously happy for those guys. I spent about 3 years covering them, though. I wish I was there for it, but obviously you're still happy for those guys.
Much respect, much respect. I don't know if Mike McCoy is watching, but definitely shout out to y'all. I know Mike has been tweeting crazy about what's been going on with the Hurricanes making the Final Four. I mean, let's go ahead and get into it, though. So your Final Four teams are going to be San Diego State, Florida Atlantic, the Miami Hurricanes, and UConn. UConn is back. They've had a hell of a tournament, and every single game that UConn has played has not been close at all. It's been blowout after blowout after blowout. The way that this tournament's been shaping out for them, especially with the Final Four teams that are left, UConn's the only program with a championship in their program history. The other teams have not. San Diego State's never been to a Final Four. We just said Miami hasn't been to a Final Four. And then, of course, Florida Atlantic. But, I mean, I don't know. UConn to me, I think, has got to be your favorite moving forward with just what they've been doing throughout this tournament. I know Miami had a huge win over Texas on Sunday, but man, there's not enough I can say about what the UConn men's basketball team is doing right now.
Yeah, shout out to all four teams. Obviously, it's hard to make it this far and make it to the Final Four. No number one seed made it this far this year. I don't even think we have a 2 seed this year, so it's just super hard. I think each team deserves some credit. I think Florida Atlantic University deserves a lot of credit. I think even K-State's coach said after the game that was like the hardest playing team that they played all year. So those guys, a team that no one expected to make that far, Cinderella story, low major college. So shout out to them. Shout out to UM, of course, obviously making it to the Elite Eight last year. That big second half against Texas, they would have come back. And there's maybe a questionable call down the stretch, but it is what it is. So, shout out to all four teams for making it. Should be a good tournament on both sides, men's and women.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, Florida Atlantic just continuing on, like you said, what they're doing, even getting that win over Kansas State, a 9 seed making the Final Four. I was a little surprised UConn beat Gonzaga the way that they did. I thought that was going to be their first game that was close, but then, obviously they went and shut it down with, scores. Hawkins for UConn, one of their guards, led the team with 20. Then second leading scorer was Caravan, forward with 12 points. They've just been clicking on all cylinders. I think probably the talk of the weekend would have to be that UT Miami game. UT had their issues with the coach and the coach moving on. Then obviously you bring in interim head coach to kind of run the program moving forward. Just got the interim tag on, and Rodney Terry took it and he ran with it. The team looked better under him than it did before. I know KD tweeted out that he's just done an amazing job on both sides. So a lot of people were picking UT to kind of win the whole thing, and it seemed like they were on course to do that. Then that second half came. Both teams were kind of turning the ball over a lot, especially at the end. And to me, I think what was the biggest thing, probably like the biggest turning point of the game was had to be when Carr got hurt. He kind of fell. He was holding his thigh. He wasn't really as mobile as he was throughout the game after that. And I felt like that took a big turn. They had to kind of play with lineups a little bit differently in the second half, which Miami completely capitalized on. The questionable call you're talking about that foul call at the end that they said it was against Miami and then they overturned it.
Yeah.
I don't think that.
The one where it looked like he went over the top, but they called
Yeah,
it.
at the end of the game.
Yeah, on the rebound.
Yeah, I don't think I can see why people would say that was questionable. I thought that was clear all day on UT. I thought UT was about to get lucky when they initially made the call and said it was against Miami, because then obviously he fouls out. But I think that game kind of, if you look at that game from start to finish, you would probably have to say that Miami came out as the team that should have won based on how they were playing. UT completely let their foot off the gas. Like I said, turnover machines after that. And, they just couldn't hold Miami off.
Yeah, definitely. You obviously don't want to blame a whole basketball game on one possession. But it's a big one because you think that the guy for UT is boxing him out, and then Miami's guy just jumps right over him. It's not much the guy from UT can do about that. I don't even think it's, I guess I don't know what they overturned it and said, but I don't know if it's legal for you. That's not over the back call. You can't just jump over someone's back like that when they're box out position. But, the refs obviously know more about the rules and stuff than I do. So, like I said, you don't want to blame the whole game on one missed call, one whatever. Like you said, they seems like they let their foot off the gas. They kind of had them. Maybe they thought, like, after how the first half went, that things would be more of the same. But I think Miami turned it up. Obviously, like I said, being here in Elite Eight last year, and they had a few games earlier in this tournament where they had to come back. So I think Miami kind of turned it up a little bit, and then they got themselves into kind of a pick'em game down the stretch, and then anything can happen. And you think about the call, and that kind of just is what it is. I think it's one of those things where do you give more credit to Miami or do you knock UT a little bit? I think it's a little bit of both. I think shout out Miami, tough team obviously. So I think yeah, it is what it is. Great game though. We'll see how Texas goes moving forward with the new head coach.
Yeah, I think the future's got to be bright for Texas moving forward. Texas sports in general. Their football team's on fire with the recruiting, how the season went last year. Basketball team makes it to the Elite Eight. Haven't done that since Kevin Durant was there. So that's huge. And yeah, I mean, if you're a Miami Hurricanes fan, you got to be absolutely excited for what's moving and brewing there. You're in the Final Four right now. First time in program history. You've got the players. Got a lot, I would say, that is going in Miami's favor right now. Moving forward, obviously, we got a Final Four that we do got to talk about. We definitely do have to talk about here. And that is going to be Florida Atlantic versus San Diego State. The Cinderella story going up against San Diego State. And then the Miami Hurricanes against UConn. Those UConn Huskies. So let's go ahead and get started with San Diego State and Florida Atlantic. I got San Diego State going to the championship game. I think highly of Brian Dutchess, guy that used to coach the Fab Five. We all know what type of team that was under him, and just him being able to kind of put all that together. It's something that hasn't been matched since. And obviously he's moved on, just like a lot of people moved on. He's at San Diego State now. And this is the first year that he's kind of been able to really get things going, and we're getting to see him, the quality of coach that he is that we haven't gotten to see in a while. So I think when you got that experience there, he's coached in championship games in the past. I am going to have to go with San Diego State, Kawhi Leonard's alma mater, to go to the championship game against Florida Atlantic. I think Florida Atlantic has been an awesome team thus far throughout the tournament. They've had a hell of a run, but I just can't see them getting past what San Diego State's been putting together as of late.
I think Florida Atlantic has made me a slight believer. I think that I think that Kansas State game was tough. I think that was obviously Kansas State was playing really well, knocked off Michigan, another team that was playing well. So I think I'm gonna give this to Florida Atlantic. I think the run continues. I think it'll be a good game between both teams, but I think kind of like to what K State's coach said, that those guys just play super hard out there. So expect them to come out there, play the same way, and we riding that high from knocking off Kansas State. I think Kansas State was playing really well going into that game, and I don't think anybody would have picked them to win that game. So I think they'll be riding that high and kind of use that momentum to maybe knock off San Diego State.
All right, I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it. My whole thinking is San Diego State's a little bit more seasoned. I thought that win against Creighton was definitely big for them as well, but I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it at all. Next up, we got the UConn going up against your alma mater, the Miami Hurricanes. You want me to take this first, or you got it?
You can go first.
I got UConn, man. No disrespect. I love you. I love Mike. And you know what? Out of support, I will be rooting for the Hurricanes to pull that off. But UConn, like I said, has not had a close game all tournament. They have smashed through this tournament. It just seems like it's destiny for them to get another championship over there. Last one was back when they had Cardiac Kemba. And it's time. It's time.
Actually, the last one was Shabazz.
Ooh, you're right. You're right. That's my fault. But it's been a while. It's wild, because I remember that. It's the year he got drafted by the Heat, like right after that tournament. Yeah, I gotta go with UConn. I gotta go with UConn on this one. They just have not. They haven't had a full come close to touching what they've been doing. Even when you think you got them on the heels, they come out like how the Warriors used to and just blow everything up as far as scoring goes. So I got UConn against Miami. The question for me is the game close? Based on what I saw last weekend, I think if Miami can keep the turnovers down, then they can keep it close. If they play very similar to how they played against UT, I expect this to be another blowout.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, and that's kind of what I was going to talk about and harp on. I think it depends on what the game ends up looking like. If Miami can keep it close and keep it in striking distance and kind of not letting it get out of hand, I think I would take them just from what we've seen from them throughout the tournament. So I think that'd be the difference in the game. I think it's going to – Miami has shown us different teams throughout this tournament. They were down in that first round and had to come back. So it depends on what Miami team comes out. Sometimes they slack in the first half and then play better in the second half. So I think this is one of those games where they're going to have to be locked in, laser focused from the beginning, kind of roll with the punches and try to keep it close as possible, and then kind of do what they've been doing and kind of make that strike at the end. I think, like you said, if they get into turning the ball over, not playing as well too late, this is not a team you want to get down early on. And I think if they get down early, there might be some problems. But I still wouldn't count them out too much. I think maybe they relish in those moments, and maybe that's what it takes for those guys to wake up over there. So kind of one of those pick'em games. I think the Hurricanes are riding high. I'm a roll with the Hurricanes. Slightly, this is a biased pick. I'm just going to throw it out there. But I do think the Hurricanes are playing extremely well. And I do think being the Final Four, it'll be a closer game. I think they understand the moment and the magnitude of the moment. They're going to have to definitely learn from their mistakes. So I think they'll keep it close enough to be in striking distance. And then from there, I think they got a shot.
All right, I'm not mad at it. That thing takes place Saturday, April 1st. Tune in. First game tips off at 5:09. That's 5:09 Central. So 6:09 Eastern Standard Time on CBS, and that'll be followed at 8:49 or 7:49 if you're Central like me, also on CBS, which will be that final game. Couldn't scripted it any better. The Miami Hurricanes going up against the UConn Huskies. A lot of things going on in the NBA lately. I think specifically, more so than anything, is that these races to the finish line, when it comes to finishing in the playoff or play-in, has been bigger than ever. First couple storylines we got to get to The Cleveland Cavaliers have clinched their first playoff berth without LeBron James since 1998. Whole different lineup back then. We're talking a little bit after Craig Elo, but slightly before. Sean Klump was on that team. So that was a very, very long time ago. Cleveland finishes right here. Seems like they're locked into that 4 seed. And then all it is a matter of where 5 to 8 finish. You got the Chicago Bulls, the Toronto Raptors, the Atlanta Hawks, Miami Heat, Brooklyn Nets, and the New York Knicks all kind of fighting with each other for position. Seems like the Knicks, Nets, and Heat are a lot more closer to each other. Knicks steadily in that 5th spot right now. They're at 11 and a half games behind first. And right behind them on their heels is Brooklyn, who's about 3 games behind the Knicks. And then that'll be the same with the Heat. This matchup between these 3 teams has probably been the most interesting because it's almost like on any given night, one of these teams is jumping the other because the team lost to who they shouldn't have lost to, or they beat a team, or one of them lost to each other. Like, specific example, the Heat get blown out by the Nets. Just can't happen, and that's why the Heat are sitting at 7. I think you got to want that 5 because, in my opinion, especially if you're the Heat, you feel like you can get to the second round if you get in that 4 or 5 matchup with Cleveland. I'm probably going to take this to hold with just a couple games left before we get into the playoffs. I said in here, but what was that, last week, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the Cavs and the Knicks possibly matching up in the first round. You know, I was here for it. I did not mean to play that. You know, I was here for it.
Drew Marshall. Guaranteed.
Guarantee. I'm guaranteeing a 7-game series between them. That's my pick. I'm sticking to it, and I believe that the Knicks are going to finish in 5th. Then you'll have Brooklyn at the 6, probably playing up against Philly, which I believe will be a sweep, and the Miami Heat against the Boston Celtics, which I believe will also go 7.
Chuck, guaranteed. Drew Marshall. Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
Yeah, I think for those teams, you want to avoid that play-in situation. Obviously, I think those teams think they can win a play-in, but anything can happen in a play-in. You think about the Warriors a few years ago. They go into the play-in, end up losing against the Lakers, and then losing against the Grizzlies as a shocker when the Grizzlies were kind of still coming up. So anything can happen, so you kind of want to avoid that play-in situation as much as possible. So I think those teams, the Heat, the Nets, and those teams down there are going to be battling back and forth. I think that win the other day was really big for the Nets to get that blowout win because I think maybe they have the tiebreaker now over the Heat. So they're in that 6th spot. So we'll see how it comes down the stretch. I think the Nets laid a stinker out here in Orlando on the second night of back-to-back, but emotional game versus the Heat, a lot of things on the line. So the Magic are playing well at the moment. So I think that that fight should be interesting because, like I said, those teams want to avoid that playing at any chance. I mean, obviously still good to maybe get home court in a play-in, but anything can happen in that play-in. So shout out to the Cavs for making it. They almost made it last year, so obviously adding Donovan Mitchell. See how they started the season out. We kind of expected this coming, but, you know, nothing's guaranteed. So definitely shout out to the Cavs for that. That Knicks-Cavs series will be real interesting for everything that's on the line. Obviously, first-round playoff series. Donovan Mitchell coming back home to the Garden. The fact that he was supposed to be on the Knicks and kind of how that plays into it. And you already see Stephen A. say that they better not lose to the Cavs and this and that. So that series is going to be interesting for just the storylines and then everything, you know. I think Donovan Mitchell will have some big games. So after that, we'll just see how the play-in falls and see where those top seeds ends up matching up. I think Philly's back in 3rd. James Harden's Achilles has been hurting him. So it might be a Philly Brooklyn matchup, which is interesting in itself for James Harden, Ben Simmons situation. Who Ben Simmons is now out for the rest of the season, so that's something. So yeah,
Man, doesn't that stink? There's some in me that's hoping that he can come back for a playoff berth. Like now I kind of want everything. I would love for this to finish exactly like this. You can't script it better of a Cavs versus Knicks matchup. As far as Donovan Mitchell being from New York, then you thought he was going to be a Knick. He thought he was going to be a Knick. Ends up with the Cavs. Brooklyn versus Philly after that trade last year. If you can get Ben Simmons back for that series, that'll be huge. Just, again, storylines. And then even for the Heat against the Celtics, the Heat and the Celtics have had battles back and forth. I feel like the Heat have played well as of late. Obviously, they laid a stinker against the Nets with it being that much of a blowout. But the Heat are probably a team that a lot of teams don't want to have to match up with in the playoffs just because of what they're capable of, and it's been an odd season for them. But man, if this thing goes chalk, and then you can hope that Ben Simmons finds a way to get into the playoffs, man, this could be the East could be something to watch in that first round just for what it's going to come down to alone.
yeah. I don't think you'll see Ben Simmons back. But we'll see how it goes. I think trying to throw him out there for a playoff series after how much time he has missed, a playoff series in Philly, so you know how big that's going to be. I think that'll be a lot. But you hope for the best because I think a lot of people, when you look at the situation, you think this is exactly what we've been asking Ben Simmons to be in. A situation where he's surrounded by a whole bunch of shooters. He's the guy he can attack. Kind of a lot of people saying like he needs to be in a Giannis situation so he can fully maximize his potential. And now he's in this situation, and it seems like he just can't stay healthy or stay on the court for whatever it is. So we'll see how it goes moving forward and kind of what happens with him this summer. But I think it's a little unfortunate how it's working out. But I think it'll be tough for him to come back for a playoff run.
Yeah, I don't know. He's not even a starter on this team though. He's coming off the bench. We don't really know what's the situation there. They're kind of capped with him. There's nothing you can really do with him to move him. So you kind of just got to hope that he becomes that player, at least that you saw in Philadelphia before last year. And I mean, yeah, that's all you can really hope for. Not a ton of action in the NBA today. The Miami Heat are currently up 7-2 on the Toronto Raptors. As far as teams we're looking at who are in this win and in or win to stay out of the play-in situation. Of course, the Hawks are in that play-in, playoff situation as well. They've got a tough one against the Cavs. But if we shift our attention over to the West. So the West, down from 3 all the way to like 12. They're all these teams are just vying. Like on any day, a team at 10 could jump all the way up to 6 or 7. So it's this week especially is going to be huge for determining the playoff race. The Clippers did themselves justice last night by getting a win over Chicago. Chicago coming off that back-to-back after beating the Lakers. Shout out to Pat Bev. Said that he was going to stop the Lakers from getting in the playoffs, and he's already started that off by getting a win with the Chicago Bulls over them. But I mean, there definitely isn't a lot of parity here. Most of these teams, there's not going to be a 60-win team in the West. There's really no clear-cut favorite here.
Yeah, no, I think the West is wide open when you kind of look at it. I think even when you look at the top seeds, I don't think a lot of people have 100% confidence in those top seeds. I think you can see Denver going down. You can see Memphis going down in the right matchup. So I think this is maybe the widest the West has been. So just for like how bad the Warriors has played, you can see them getting in and maybe ended up in some favorable matchups. If you right now, I think they're in like the 7th seed. If they win, they play Memphis. I think as much as a rivalry that is, they went into Memphis last year Memphis was on a high. Obviously, Memphis has more experience this year. It's a different Warriors team, but I think they can go into Memphis and win. If they get back to the 6th seed, they can go into Sacramento and win that series and end up against the Grizzlies again in the second round. So I think the Lakers get in with a healthy Bron, AD playing at the level with the pieces surrounding them. I think them against Denver, or them against Memphis or Sacramento, there's a chance that those teams can win those games. And then I think the interesting matchup is this, how the 4-5 ends up. I think the 4-5 matchup will have two teams with championship aspirations on the line. So you see right now you have the Suns and the Clippers. If one of those teams go home in the first round, I guess the Suns, you can chop it up to, hey, KD came late, injuries, we didn't get the ball rolling enough, we'll be fully healthy next year, and we'll really go for it. But it's another season of KD's career. He's getting a little older, same with CP, to kind of just fight to get back to the same point. I think you look at the Clippers, it's the same thing. How long do you ride this PG, Paul George, PG and Kawhi experiment before you say, hey, maybe it's not working? And then even the matchup, like the storylines in there, KD versus Russ, PG, KD, Kawhi, KD, things like that. So I think right now, I think the West would be the most up in the air one. And I think that should be the most interesting to watch and see how. And it's funny to see how teams will play at the end. If you're the Clippers, do you maybe, if you have a chance, fall out of 5 and fall to 6 and match up with the Kings and take your shot there. So it'll be interesting to see. I think the West is super, super wide open, and we could see some heavy hitters go down early.
I'm gonna be honest. If I'm the Clippers, based on what I saw when those two teams played each other, especially with the way that the Kings have been playing this year, probably wouldn't want to match up with them. I feel like that wouldn't end well for them early in the playoffs. But what I will say is, I'm gonna keep hitting this button like every show.
Guaranteed. Drew Marshall. Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
The Clippers are going to the conference finals. Clippers are going to the conference finals, especially once they get PG back. Ty Lue, like I said, he's kind of found the lineups that he's looking for. PG got hurt. What does he do? He decides to throw Batum in as his starting power forward. This guy hit like 6 threes in a row against 6 threes in a row, like 6 threes in a row last night against the Chicago Bulls. They were on it. They had 40 assists. This is the type of team that they are. They kind of, I feel like especially now, they're just starting to hit their stride. Everybody knows everybody, how they like the ball to get passed to them and whatnot. Bones Highland was balling. Russell Westbrook was doing what he does. Like I said, multiple assists, double-digit assists. This team, to me, like, I felt like the last couple years we haven't gotten a chance to really see the Clippers and what the potential of what they can be, because either Kawhi Leonard or Paul George was hurt. You know, they had the one year where they went to the conference finals, led by PG. I had to give him his respect on that one. But Kawhi Leonard is back playing to the level that he was when he was with the Toronto Raptors, when he was with the San Antonio Spurs. Russell Westbrook clearly knows his role. He even seems like he's more interjected when it comes to playing defense more. So they're deep. They got to be the deepest team in the West, if not the league right now, with the pieces that they have. And I don't know. I like what I'm seeing there. Anything can definitely happen, like you're saying, especially with we don't have locks in who's in what seed yet in the West. You know, the West it's a war zone out there. Anything can happen. You know, I agree with you. I'm still not a believer in the Denver Nuggets. I don't think Jamal Murray's at where he should be. Yeah, I have my reservations about Jokic. I think most of us do. And then Memphis, I don't really know what's going on with Memphis right now. You know, they have a lot of different things going on where, you know, maybe focuses aren't where they should be as far as on the court goes. So then all these teams are just that close with each other.
Right. I think Memphis has played well after that kind of adversity hits. I think they're still without Steven Adams and things like that. And that kind
Is he coming back?
That's a good question. I think they'll need him. They've been playing well. Obviously, Brandon Clark out for the year. But yeah, the West is wide open, like you said, and I said it too. Like I don't think anyone's confident in those top seeds. Like none of those top seeds had kind of been there and done that. Obviously, the Nuggets have been here hanging around for a little while now, and you think maybe it's their time to hit the mark. But it's I think that's one of those like they have to show us first before we fully believe, and then we feel like if they run into a team that has experience, that we can see that team kind of winning. So, same thing with the Grizzlies, still a young up and coming team. Obviously, you see what they went through this year, which is like young knucklehead stuff. So, there's the West is open, and I can't wait to see. Like I said, some heavy hitters may go down early, and some people who were just out of it last month can make a run to the conference finals.
Bro, if the Lakers or Golden State ends up as the 8th seed, Denver is losing in the first round. Like, I am sure on that. I think if they have to play the Pelicans in the first round, they'd probably win, but they would get a scare there as well. I mean, OKC is in the mix. We haven't even talked about that as much. This OKC is a little bit, I don't want to say completely ahead of schedule because we know how good SGA is, but the rest of this team is extremely young. Josh Giddey's in his second year. You got no Chet Holmgren this year. And they'll be in the play-in. I mean, as of right now. So, there's that. I mean, even Dallas, we can get into Dallas. Dallas is, I think they were the 5th or 6th seed when they traded for Kyrie Irving. They're at 11 right now. Luka Doncic was saying that he's not having fun anymore. I'm going to hit y'all with another game, too.
Drew Marshall. Guaranteed. Guaranteed. 4-0.
Kyrie Irving is not going to be a Dallas Maverick next year. Kyrie Irving, no way he is a Dallas Maverick next year. And to the Dallas Mavericks front office that decided to make that trade and give up all that depth, I say this. Blow up in your face.
I would hold on for a moment. When the trade happened, I said, I don't know about this, but the trade also cleared them. If they don't re-sign Kyrie, they have max money this summer to go get Luka whoever he wants. So it's a win-win for them regardless if you ask me. This Kyrie thing doesn't work out. They probably didn't want it to work out anyway, but they freed up cap space to say, hey, Luka, we'll try to get you whoever you want. Now, it could end up failing if they don't get him anybody, but maybe they can get him some better supporting role players for maybe like another year and then have a chance to go after someone again next year. So they have lined themselves to where they would have been stuck in those contracts for the next 3 or 4 years without having to be able to go get him somebody. They put themselves in the position for the next few years to be like, hey, if you can get him here or if we can get him here, we'll get you whoever you think is perfect to go next to you or whoever we think is perfect to go next to you. So the Kyrie experiment may not work out, but I don't think all is lost for them.
Who's going over there? I've been saying this for years. It's the same reason why I knock him as a player, because we always like to compare him on this show to Houston James Harden. Plays literally the same exact way. And bro, they've had chances. Nobody wants to play with him. No superstar is clamoring to go to Dallas to play with him because they know that they're not getting the ball that much unless he's getting double teamed. They don't want to sit in that situation. If I had to bet, they're going to get him some more role players, and that's it. If somebody can get through to him and try and get him to change his playing style, kudos to you. It hasn't worked thus far. We thought it was going to happen with Jason Kidd, and it hasn't. Their best bet is to wait at the trade deadline for a disgruntled star and bring him over there.
Yeah, or someone in the summer. But I think you leave your chances open. I think people have shown that they will go to Dallas. I think people are also very high on Luka, that you can maybe convince someone to want to play with Luka. There's people out there that want to play with Luka. So I think we've seen some players try to want to go to Dallas and maybe interested in Dallas. So I think with Luka there's a player or so who's willing to go over there and play with Luka, for sure.
I mean, we'll wait and see, man. We will absolutely wait and see. But you gotta.
I think I think
Go
everyone
ahead.
knows Mark Cuban and knows that he's one of those owners that is going to go for it and will spend the money and those type of things. So I think they can get someone. It's more of a Luka thing. I think it'll be more like Luka on the forefront, like, hey, let's do this. Let's play together. And I think a lot of people will look at that real hard and say, hey, especially I think someone from overseas, kind of they tried it with Porzingis type of thing, but I think someone from overseas, I think you can Luka can kind of get them to come over there.
Who is his ideal running mate that you think would be available?
That I don't know. I'd have to take a hard look.
He has to play. You know who he'd probably be great with, and I say this all the time. Everybody says it. Bradley Beal would be his ideal running mate because he's a guy that doesn't need the ball to score. He's not going to ask for the ball as much. He'd probably be happy in Dallas.
I think I see. We've compared this game a lot to James Harden, and I'm thinking you can get somebody. I think it would have to be like a CP situation, someone that scores, but also gets others involved. So, like Kyrie's coming. I don't think he needs like another scorer next to him is good, but then it's just them playing one on one on one on one. What worked so well for the Rockets that year is that Harden is also a solid passer, but CP was also running that offense. So other people were eating, and then CP still got his at the same time when you needed him to. So it was someone that can score but get others involved. So James Harden was only worried about scoring and then passing when he needed to pass or when whatever. So I think he needs someone like that that's going to help those other guys get involved, because then it just becomes you, me, and everyone else is kind of just standing there. You need someone that's going to get everyone else involved and then still get his. Maybe he needs like a solid floor general.
You know who might be available? Seriously. Because we haven't talked about this enough. I don't feel like anybody's talking about this enough. Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard got shut down for the season. He came out in that interview where he was talking about, I'm not here to build, I'm here to win. So there's already a disconnect there as far as rebuilding versus trying to go out there and win. And they definitely have a lot of young players in Portland right now. I would keep an eye on that.
Yeah, I've seen some people talking about Damian Lillard recently and kind of maybe his future being up in the air. That's interesting. You know who he might need? And I may be going out on a limb here, so just hear me out. There's this guy, Jalen Brunson. You know, he might just need Jalen Brunson, which is kind of crazy. You know? So, hey.
Hey man, he didn't want but it goes back to my point. He didn't want to play with him anymore. He wanted to go to New York and do his own thing. He wanted to have the ball in his hands.
I think his dad in New York played a big factor.
They played a huge part. They played a huge part, no doubt. But do you think if he was having more fun playing basketball, because Dallas offered him a ton of money to stay there, a lot of money to stay there, and he decided, no, I'm going to go to New York. I'm going to do this.
But if you remember that contract negotiation, they tried to negotiate a contract before the season. It didn't work out. And his dad came out and basically said that yesterday's price is not today's price. Brunson balls out in the playoffs. They hear all these New York rumors and stuff like that. I think New York is probably already at the top of his list to be with his dad and be in New York and all that type of stuff. And then the Mavs tried to double back and offer him all that money. But I think the relationship was kind of maybe torn there already. I think if maybe negotiations went a little well to start, he probably would have considered more staying. So it might have been more of a business. And then it's kind of like, hey, I would love to stay, but New York is also like, it's one of those hard situations to kind of pass up and may never come again.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're definitely not wrong there. You're not. But if he had a better relationship with Luka Doncic, are we not sitting here saying it would have been harder for him? It seemed like it was very easy for him to make that choice.
Yeah, because the money situation, once the contracts and stuff started to come into play, it was like, hey, these people are ready to give me the money from the get. And it's like, it's kind of like I felt he might have felt undervalued. And then you see that I I am valued, but it's too late. And then you see that someone else is kind of appreciating me. It's like a kid where like he's done with his old toy and maybe didn't appreciate it as much, and someone else picks it up, and now that toy looks like a new toy, and you try to run over there and get it, but now it's kind of like, hey, it's too late. And his mind probably was already made up about, hey, I'm gonna leave, and then you kind of double back and throw it on him. But like I said, I think it would have been maybe tough to keep him regardless, not unless they figured that out at the beginning. I think once he hit free agency and all that stuff was happening, it would have been tough to keep him because I think it's tough to be like, hey, yeah, I love Luka and our relationship is great, but to play with your dad in New York City and get paid all that money, I think that's the opportunity that's like I said, you may never get it again. So I think you look at that real hard, like, hey, I'll take it. You can play with Luka again. You guys are young.
I can't get behind it. I can't get behind it. Like, because it's not that I don't disagree with what you're saying. I don't. I get that. I mean, his dad played for the Knicks. He practically grew up a Knicks fan, if not.
Unfortunate.
But if he had a stronger relationship with Luka Doncic, it's like, hey, we can go chase championships. We just went on a run to the Western Conference Finals together. You're not going to do that with the Knicks. No disrespect. You're not going to a conference finals with the Knicks. Unless something outrageous happens. Where eventually they did offer him the bag. They offered the Brinks truck for him to stay in Dallas. And he said, no, I think you have to at least a little bit point to his relationship with Doncic in there.
I can see him making that I can see him making that decision, even if he had a great relationship with Doncic. It's just like we've seen it happen a lot of times. It's just the business of basketball always gets in the way a lot of times. I think the business is where things messed up, and it's one of those things where like, hey, our relationship is great. Take the KD and Kyrie situation just now. Like, our relationship was great, but the business of it blew it all up. So I think the business gets in the way a lot of times, and I think that was just business. So I don't. Even if they had the greatest relationship, I can see business getting in the way of that.
I could. I don't know. We're going to have to agree to disagree on this one. Quick check. Heat are up 23-22 on the Raptors right now. The Boston Celtics fighting for that 2 seed are up 50 or losing 62-51 against a Wizards team trying to get into the play-in. And the Hawks are up 20-19 on the Cleveland Cavaliers. You got a game of the week that you think we should pay attention to?
Oh, a game of the week. Let me see what's going on this week. Tonight, the Golden State Pelicans. That's a big one, seeding wise. So, KD will be back tomorrow, making his Phoenix Sun home debut against the Minnesota Timberwolves. There's a lot on the line for both of those teams. Minnesota is in the 6th seed right now. Phoenix is in the 4th seed right now, and they could fall anywhere. So I think that's a big one to see KD finally in a Suns uniform at home and try to see them get the ball rolling. And it's playoff time, so they kind of got to hit the ground running. Thursday, the Bucks and the Celtics are playing. I think obviously the 1st seed is still kind of up for grabs in that game.
That's a lot.
So,
come on.
Yeah, but statistically, it looks like if Boston wins tonight, they'll only be 1 game behind, maybe game and a half behind. So they win that game.
Milwaukee plays tomorrow too, against the Pacers.
Okay. All right. Well, if the Celtics win that game, it makes it interesting. So I think that's a big one. I think those two. I think Celtics, Bucks. I think if the Bucks win that game, I think that it's probably like 110% locked that they get the 1 seed now. So I think this is like the Celtics' last chance to fight for that 1 seed. So that'd be a big game, and I think the KD game would be interesting.
Saw my boy Chris Mitty the other night, right?
No.
Big game. Big game.
Wait, Chris who?
Chris Middleton.
Oh, no, I didn't. What did he do?
It was against the Pistons. 34, 8, and 5.
Hey, man. Well, we judge that guy based off the playoffs. Regular season, I'm going to cut him some slack. He's coming off injuries. He hasn't really been himself. He's getting his feet under him. That's a good game going into the playoffs. So I'll give him that credit. His problem is always been consistency. We'll see him in game 1, and we won't see him until fourth quarter of game 4.
We got to get Mike back on for at least a playoff show, just to have some more Chris Middleton talk. Because it's been a minute.
Maybe after the seedings are 100% set, like after the play-in, maybe we will all get on here and chop it up of NBA playoffs. Put our predictions in early.
I am with that. Can't go back on those either. For me, tomorrow night, both LA teams need a win. They like every game is important for the LA teams. The Lakers got their rematch against the Bulls in Chicago. They cannot lose that game. Cannot lose that game. Yeah, you got a lot of factors going into it. Obviously, you're trying to stay afloat in the playoff or play-in. You got Pat Bev flapping his mouth about how he's trying to keep y'all out. There's Anthony Davis, native Chicagoan. You got to win that game. But for the Clippers, they go against a Grizzlies team that I think is on a 5-game win streak right now. They were able to get a big win against Chicago yesterday, but Memphis is cream of the crop here, especially in the West. So that's definitely one that they got to have. I agree with everything that you brought up earlier. And then I will just add one more that I think is huge, is also on Wednesday, the Miami Heat against the New York Knicks for seeding purposes as well.
I just think New York, Miami's always an interesting one. So I agree with you on that. Is it in New York or Miami?
It's in New York.
Okay.
A lot of Heat fans in New York. I got video proof.
That should be a good one too. I think all these games, man. If you really love basketball, and really if you love basketball at all, it's a great time. Obviously, NCAA tournament, men's, women's. Let me give the women a quick shout out. I think it's Virginia Tech, LSU. I'm sorry. On one side of the bracket, that should be a good game. Obviously, I don't know if people expected Virginia Tech to make it this far, but LSU has a really good player. I think her name is Angela Reese. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. She's a real big-time talent out there. She's playing really well, so that should be a good one. And then Iowa versus South Carolina.
South Carolina, you got to be glued to that game.
Yes. Couple big games from a couple players on both sides, so I think that needs to be a shout out. I think that's probably going to be the game of the week on their side. The game of the Final Four, because then the championship game would probably be the game of the week. But I think that one you need to definitely tap in. That one's going to be a good one. So wanted to give them a shout out before we go in their Final Four. But the women's Final Four, men's Final Four, and then the NBA is coming down. It seems like most teams still have something to play for right now, seeding wise. So all these games are basically play-in / playoff games. So everything, the intensity of basketball is picking up, and it should be riding from now until about June. So if you're a big basketball fan, man, tap into all this stuff and make sure you're watching.
Yeah, season's over on Sunday. A lot of things to play for.
The NBA season?
Yeah, NBA season's over on Sunday.
Next Sunday? What's today?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Today is the 28th.
What a life.
Yeah, this Sunday. The 2nd. That'll be the last day of the NBA season.
No.
Oh, no, I'm wrong. I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
probably
way
the 9th.
off.
Because we have a game on the 4th. It's probably the 9th.
You're right. It'll be the 9th. It's because my bad. I had Monday the 3rd. There's no scheduled games in the NBA.
It's right, NCAA tournament. They always, it's a championship game for the men's NCAA tournament. They never play on that night.
Right. So yeah, we got about 2 weeks. Caitlin Clark alone is going to be a reason why you should watch that Iowa South Carolina game. She's going to be the #1 pick in the 2024 WNBA draft. So stay glued in. I echo everything Kay said. Y'all definitely gotta, especially if you're Hoops fans, this is the time. And if you're a Yankees fan like me, the time will be Thursday. But that is it, man. Kay, you got anything else for us before we get out of here?
No, shout out to her though. She had some really big games. A couple 40 balls the last couple games. So real big shout outs to her. Her and the South Carolina champions last year, and you just know how good South Carolina's women's team has been. So gonna be a hell of a game, man.
Come on, Dawn Staley teams don't play around. Definitely got to be glued to that one though. And yeah, I mean that's our show, man. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week. For Rich, Kay, like I said, we'll see you guys next week. Peace.